Hey everybody, we're excited to get going here, but we want to go ahead and let a few of the stragglers jump in. So I'm going to play just a quick video while we wait, and then Tim and I will get started here in T-minus 2 minutes. T-minus 2 minutes. All right, I think we're ready to get going. Tim, you ready to get going?
You bet. Let's do this.
Hey, man. Guys, we're excited to be here today. We're going to be talking about conversations. I want to introduce some research from InsideSales Labs about how to get more conversations. And then I'm going to turn it over to our esteemed guest and friend, Mr. Tim Wackel, founder and president of the Wackel Group, to talk about how to get more conversations. So Tim, I'm going to have you introduce yourself in just a second. But for those of you who don't know me, I am Gabe Larsen. I run growth here at InsideSales.com and Inside Sales. We help companies build pipeline and close more deals using artificial intelligence. Tim, do you mind taking just a minute and introducing yourself?
No, the Wackel Group is based in Dallas, Texas, and we're here to help people find, win, and keep customers for life. So I'm a fundamentalist, basic skills guy, and that's kind of why I'm on the planet today.
Yeah, guys, you are going to have an awesome time today. I consider myself decent at webinars, but Tim rocks my world. So make this interactive. Please jump in. In fact, right now, I'd like you to get the chat box real quick. You can grab it here in the Zoom platform. Tell me your name and where you're from. I'd like to see questions coming as fast as I can because, again, we want this webinar to be about you. Perfect. Ken, we got coming from Ken from Colorado, Coronado, California. You know, my wife went out there, Ken, not my wife and I. Monique, Susie, Nate, Laureen, Evelyn, Michael. Oh, yeah, Stefan coming from Deutschland. Columbus, Brian. Yeah, fantastic. Guys, we have 700 people in today's webinar. I was hoping we'd max out. We actually only have the service for 1,000. We'll see if we can push it just a little bit higher today, but let's get on in. And again, please do ask questions. I'm going to be watching that chat box all day long. Well, not all day long, but for the next little bit. So I want to jump in first and talk about how to get more conversation. Then, like I said, I'm going to hand it over to Tim and talk about how to have better conversations. Cadence, it's a word we're hearing more and more in sales. You're going to think, I go talk to reps and I say, you know, how are you getting more conversations with people? They then ask me questions like, how many times, Gabe, should I attempt to contact somebody? What method should I use? How long should I wait between activities? Trying to figure out what is optimal as they try to have more conversations with their prospects. And so honestly, I took a step back and said, why don't I use the data? You hear a lot of people out there say, hey, you should call somebody 1,000 times or 15 times, or you need to do 30 activity. And it's good. It's what they've experienced as a salesperson. And I do that sometimes. I can't argue with it. But I thought, I'm going to go into our big data set. Inside Sales, we believe, has the biggest sales database in the world. We're eclipsing trillions of data points, phone calls, emails, voice messages, lead status changes, opportunity stages. I mean, I've got so much data, it's coming out my ears. So I went and looked at a couple million data points and just said, looking at outbound cadences, what's going on here? What does a cadence actually look like? And Evelyn saying, why has sales become so difficult these days? Evelyn, I think this is the problem. When you start reaching out to people, we're getting blasted by phone calls. We're getting blasted by emails. And we're always trying to find ways to be different. Without being different, you're just not going to be successful in sales. So this study, and I'm going to make sure you get it. If you stick to the end here, I want you to get access to this study. But one big thing that came out of this, you guys, is there's no such thing as a one-size-fits-all cadence. I can't be here and say, if you want to have 1 million conversations, you have to call somebody 3 times. It's just not true. But what I did find is that there's really four in this study, 5 key principles that you want to be thinking about to optimize your cadence strategy. So number 1 is attempts. That's how many times you reach out to somebody. Number 2 is media. That's, are we going to the phone, email, voicemail, social, voicemail, I said that already, direct mailers, video, texting. There's all of these different modalities you can use. Duration, how long is the cadence? Spacing, what is the time between activities? And we didn't include it in this study, but the last is content or messaging. It's what you do, and that's where Tim's going to come in, what you say when you actually get a phone call. So just so we're on the same page, a couple people have already asked a question. What is a sales cadence? I'm glad I threw this slide. This one's for Ben. Ben, a cadence is a sequence of activities to increase contact and qualification rates. These are the things you do to have more conversations. Candace, I do think that is true. People buy from people they know and trust. They don't buy because they are afraid of making the wrong decision. The problem is, Candace, what if I can't just wait for people who know me. I got to go out. And I think some of the things we're going to be talking about today is how you can successfully go out to people in a way that actually does drive results. So let's talk first about attempts. I want to ask the question. You guys put it in the chat box. How many touches do you think reps think they do? That's think. In an optimal outbound cadence. I'm looking for a number here. 5 touches, 20 touches, 30 touches. Mark's got 20, Michael's got 5, 15, 4, 7, 6. This is interesting, you guys. When we looked at the data, you're seeing rep perception on the left-hand side. I did a survey, and I asked sales reps and said, how many total touches do you think you do on an outbound cadence? 12, 12.1. Now, the interesting thing is what reps actually do is 3. That's 75% fewer. Now, Tim's laughing because we know he talked about this. I told him, I think I go to the gym 5 times a week, Tim, but in reality, I never go. That's kind of what's happening here for sales reps. Are you guys surprised in that? Throw it in the chat box. Is that surprising? We think we do a lot more than we do? Maybe not. How many touches should you do? Ken says no. A couple of you are a little bit surprised there. I know it's almost a wow, Ryan. I agree. It's almost a wow. How many touches should reps do? What do you think? Is it more in the 10, 12, 20, 30, 40? What's optimal? And again, all the data, I basically looked at these activities and how it relates to conversations. If you do this many activities, do you have more conversations? Here you go. Survey says, look at this data. This was interesting. Again, there's a couple million data points. That's right, Tony. Until they say no. Tony probably is right. That's my kind of sales guy. Look at this. You actually have good success rates up to 7. And then look at that. As you go to 7 to 8, you see a large drop in success rates. Now, attempts, guys, is always a question of capacity. But just looking at millions of data points, if you wanted to optimize your attempts, you'd probably be in that 7 range. And that's, again, thinking of phone, email, and voicemail. Now, Nathan says, how can reps be so off how many touches they make? Again, Nathan, I think this is the nature of the business we're in. We think we're doing more, but we have so many activities, we do get lost sometimes in the data. Now, Joseph did ask a good question. What are those 7 touches? How many phone, email, etc.? Oh, Josh, I don't know if I got that in this one. I didn't actually display that in that. Josh, hit me up later or grab the study, and we do break down kind of the media in here with phone, email, and voicemail. But I think this will at least answer part of your question, Joseph. Is it better to use one communication method or multiple in your outreach cadence or sequence? What do you think? Should you just use phone? Should you just use voicemail? Should you use both? Should you use 3, 5? What do you think? Looks like most people think multiple. Check this out. We only ran it against 3 media types, but using 1 media type, you have a decent success rate. Look at that, up to 3. You significantly improve your ability to have conversations, 161%. That's mind-boggling. If you use multiple media types. So if you ever hear reps saying, I'm just a cold caller, or I'm just a social seller, or I'm just an email marketer, again, don't shoot me, I'm just the messenger. Using multiple methods. A multi-channel cadence is going to be better than single. Again, I'm just telling you what the data says. Don't be mad at me. All right, let's keep going here. Duration. How long is the optimal cadence supposed to last? 1 day? 30 days? Put it in the chat. 50 days? 17 days? 14 days? No minute. I got Betty. Betty said 2 hours. That's probably a little tight, Betty. So we won't go with that one. Denise got 14 days, 90 days, 7 days, depends on the products and services. And Sedona, I think that's a good point. This is, again, combining lots of companies across lots of verticals. So do take this with a grain of salt. That's what happens when you look at millions of data points. This is what the data said. And guys, this is outbound cadence. Know that if I'm following up on inbound leads, marketing leads, completely different. I'm focusing on outbound cadences here. Such a different, I need to do a whole different presentation on outbound versus inbound. So what it said here, a little bit surprising, you're seeing success rates here, and then days at the bottom. You can see, you know, it's actually not bad, but boy, is there something really nice going on in that 6 to 8 range. You know, that's a, you know, think of that as, you know, what is that? A week and a half-ish on, if you're just looking at business days. So optimal duration, you want to take those 7 touches and kind of spread them out over about 8 days. Again, if you're looking at kind of optimal cadences when I'm going out cold to a prospect. Surprise, I had a lot of people go longer, 60, 90. One of the things, you guys, that was really interesting that we found is marketing cadences, marketing nurture sequences. They go 36, they go 90, 180 days. Great sales cadences implement this concept of recycling. I run a cadence for a couple weeks, and then I let it sit. I let it sit for a month, and then I run it for another couple weeks, and then I let it sit for a month or 2 months, and then I bring it in again. But this idea of just pounding them for 90 days, maybe not optimal. Again, I'm just looking at the data here. All right, let's hit this next one. This is spacing. Jeremy, it's a great comment down there. So what is the optimal spacing for a cadence? What do you think? Oh my goodness, I'm gonna show you the results here. Days, I'm looking for days here. Do you wait 1 business day? Do you wait 3 days? Do you wait 4 days? Between touches. So I do a phone call on Monday. Do I do another phone call or email on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? How long do I wait between activities? This actually was the most missed piece of a cadence. And again, remember these 4 things: attempts, media, duration, spacing, content. Those are those 5 elements. Spacing, whichever finger that was, it would have been this one. That's the most thing that people just don't ever even think about. When I sit down with people to build cadences, they're always just on attempts. Well, I need to do it 20 touches, right, Gabe? Well, there's other things you want to be thinking about. Okay, let's see here. 2 days, next day, 3 days. Susan did ask a good question. My team does inbound and outbound. Do you have documentation for optimal cadences for inbound? Susan, I'm so glad you asked. I mentioned it briefly. Guys, again, outbound cadences, so much different than inbound. We did do a full research study, Susan, on inbound cadences. Hit me up on LinkedIn or go to insidesales.com/resources and look for the research report called Cadence Audit. We did an audit of 9,000 companies' inbound cadences, and totally different results, totally different attempts, media, everything's different. So I'm glad you asked, but it is in a different research paper. Okay, back to this optimal spacing. Most people actually got it. It is in that 1 to 2 day range. and it sounds like this was pretty intuitive. Was this pretty intuitive, you guys? It looks like this one a lot of people didn't miss. And I think the reason, and I'm going to answer this is a good question from Dave. He said, why is it so short? I think, Dave, because this is basically the instant gratification generation. If I think of a good cadence, again, I'm trying to educate people. I'm not just shooting a phone, doing a phone call and sending them a random email and leaving a random voicemail. We call it a play often. All of those things come together with a message. And that message, the phone call, the email, they all connect together. And if you do that the right way, you start to educate people. But if you have 10 days between activities, I don't even remember what I did yesterday, you guys. So you want to keep that closer together. You hit them. So again, you take a cadence, 7 days, 8 days, 7 touches, bring that together, great messaging tied into it, and then potentially recycle them. Let me hit to a couple of these questions here. Tony, yes, this webinar will be viewed again. Mike, it would have to be about 1 every 24 hours if you're going to get 7 touches in 8 days. That is about right, Mike. And again, you can mix and match that a little bit. So you might do 2 touches in 1 day and then do a 3rd touch, a day after. Depends a little bit on your mojo there. But again, these are the law of averages. So do kind of keep that into consideration. Tony, people's attention span is not that long. I think that is right, Tony. When we have such short attention spans, you have to kind of pack these in a little bit more. Monica's asked a good question. Sounds like, Monica, you're late? Dang it. That's all right. You can view this later. But what constitutes a touch was Monica's question. Monica, a touch is any kind of communication activity against a contact. Phone call, voice message, email, text message, direct mailer. I can't remember. I've actually got 8 that we're trying to monitor right now. Social touch, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. So guys, as I wrap up here in thinking about this principle, Kevin, thank you, video. Chat is another one. Thank you, Tom. Those are the 8. We need to say these real quick. Phone call, voicemail, email, social, direct mailer, chat, and video. I think there may be one more, but there's a lot of things you can use to touch a client right now, Monica. She was on a client call. I do forgive you, Monica, but just this once. I would put Facebook in that social, LinkedIn, Candace, Twitter, etc. So guys, as I wrap up here, focusing on how to get more conversations. This is not better. Tim's going to jump in right now and talk to you about how to optimize conversations, questions, etc. This is all of that piece about getting to the conversation. So remember, cadence is a sequence of activities to increase contact and qualification rates. There are 5 main pillars to do that: attempts, media duration, spacing, and content. So I think that's really important for you to focus on. Now, a couple of you are saying, how can I make sure that I'm successful in a cadence? Well, I'm going to tell you right now, real quick. One of the tool and technologies that Inside Sales offers is a sales cadence tool. It hooks into Salesforce, Dynamics, and SAP, and it allows you to structure, you can see it right here, a multi-channel sales cadence. Phone, voicemail, email, social. You plug it in, you program it, and then literally with the click of a button, you can start to action these activities, and it's all going to sync right back into Salesforce, into Microsoft, into SAP, so that you can stick through some of these best practices. A lot of people are like, cadence, 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 but the thing is, if you don't know the best practices, technology is just technology. So you take a tool like InsideSales.com's Playbooks product, and you then combine that with some of these best practices, you guys. Again, you can email right here. The system has AI built in, so it actually can show you optimal email addresses. It can show you optimal phone numbers, and then it can even actually schedule and say, I'm going to send this email when it's most optimal for this person to engage with that product. A lot of cool email features built into that. So I did want to throw that out there. Best practices with technology. Joseph asked a great question. How does this differ from Outreach.io? Joseph, think of Outreach as a cadence tool. Think of InsideSales.com as a cadence tool with an opinion. What I mean by that is InsideSales.com is going to tell you who you should go after. It's going to tell you optimal phone numbers. It's going to tell you which contacts you should be thinking of. It's going to tell you which plays to work better. So think of it like Outreach.io on steroids. Great. Thanks for asking that. Okay. If you want the research, do go grab this link. Grab it, dive into it. If you don't hit me up on LinkedIn after this, I will be offended. Cadence, I love this topic. It's an important topic. Again, we only dived into the 4 elements. The 5th element of getting, the content and the messaging is so important, but I wanted to leave that for Tim. So Tim, without further ado, over to you.
Thank you, Gabe. Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and throw my screen up there if I could. So good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be. What I want to do to get started with my portion is play a quick game of Final Jeopardy. So I like, to watch TV at night, and I'm a big Final Jeopardy kind of geek. So here we go. We're going to play a quick round of Final Jeopardy to get started. And the Final Jeopardy category, everybody, is sales skills, all right? So here's the Final Jeopardy category, 86%. Final Jeopardy category is sales skills. Go to the chat box and tell me what you think the Final Jeopardy question might be. Final Jeopardy answer, 86%. Final Jeopardy category is sales skills. What in the world do you think the Final Jeopardy question might be? Well, here's the actual question. The question is, what percentage of customers think salespeople ask ineffective questions? There was a survey done by an organization called the Sales Board. A couple years ago, they surveyed over 19,000 B2B customers across 27 different industries. And what they discovered is most customers think the salespeople they deal with don't know how to really put together an intelligent sales conversation. We all have questions we like to ask. Maybe you guys will recognize a few of these. How about this one? Whoa, wow, do you have budget? Man, that makes me want to run and get my wallet, right? How about this one? Who is involved in the decision-making process? I don't think so. How soon are you looking to make a change? Well, my question would be, how much longer are you going to ask me these silly questions? And my all-time favorite that I hear salespeople use is, what keeps you up at night? Personally, for me, it's Mexican food. So we want to do a better job of working on, once we get that engagement, once we've been through the cadence and we get a live conversation, we want to make sure that we know how to engage that prospect, engage that customer. So after 3 decades of working with top performers, there's certain patterns of success that really start to happen. So what I want to share with you guys today very briefly are just 3 fundamental principles that are going to help you do a better job of engaging. And principle number 1 is you've got to ditch the pitch, folks. And you see it all the time. And it looks like this. Hey, man, I want some time on your calendar to talk about myself, my company, and all of our incredible products and services, right? Everybody wants to rush to the demo. Here's the second example. Even though you get piles and piles of unsolicited email, I want to call to see if you read the stuff that I sent you, right? How's that working for you? And my third and final example, we're so freaking incredible, I could share meaningless, self-absorbed run-on stories for the next half hour because after all, it is all about us. Well, it's not. So why does this happen? Well, it's pretty straightforward. We as salespeople, we understand our stuff, which means this is very comfortable and easy to do. What I see as a sales consultant, though, is there's too many organizations out there that are wrapping their salespeople in sales training that's not really sales training. If you're not getting proper sales training, the only training you're probably getting is product training. And here's the challenge is that if all you're trained on is product, guess what you're going to talk about? You're going to talk about product, folks. What you sell is important to your success, but how you sell is critical. Let me say that again. What you sell is important. How you sell is critical. If what you sold was the defining variable, everybody would be at 100% of quota. Well, they're not, because some people sell better. But the number one reason we're not really doing a good job of these conversations, we're just haven't prepared. When I work with salespeople, 2 of the questions I ask, number 1 is, how much time do you spend planning and preparing before each and every sales conversation? And usually the answer is little or not enough. And then the second question I ask is, hey, out of the time that you do spend planning and preparing, what percentage of that time is focused on, here's what I'm going to say, versus what percentage of that time is focused on, here's what I need to ask? And so my conclusions are twofold. We all could spend more time planning and preparing, and the time that we spend planning and preparing, we ought to be thinking about the questions that we're going to ask. So what happens when we pitch prematurely? The other party doesn't engage. You've got to generically position. If you call my office and you say, hey, Tim, do you guys do sales training? My first question is going to be, wow, that's an interesting question. Why do you ask? The third thing that happens, there's a premature focus on the obvious, and ultimately you're going to miss opportunities. So here's a real live example. Here's a sales rep that had a call with me back in 2017. So I'm the customer, I'm the prospect, he's calling on me. His name has been blacked out to prevent the guilty. But here's what I want to draw your attention to. This Uber conference indicates that my side of the conversation on an initial sales call, my side of the conversation was live for 8 minutes. Frederick, the sales rep, spoke for 36 minutes. So ladies and gentlemen, what are the odds Frederick's going to get another call with me? The answer, very, very low, because in 36 minutes, I pretty much learned everything about Frederick and his organization and the products and services they offered. But in 8 minutes, how much could Frederick really learn about me? And the answer is not nearly enough to warrant a second conversation. So principle number one is ditch the pitch. Principle number two then is, as sales professionals, I think you really pride yourself on the ability to make fewer statements and ask more questions. Too many salespeople think they demonstrate their brilliance through what they say. I believe you demonstrate your brilliance through what you ask. Your number one job at the end of the day is you have to help customers completely understand their problems. And when you're not asking the right kinds of questions, here's what happens. When you don't ask the right kinds of questions, you don't get to tease out the problem, which means the customer hangs up and he really doesn't completely understand his problem. And if the customer doesn't understand his problem, there's no way in the world you understand his problem. So if he doesn't understand the problem and you don't understand the problem, it's probably not a real deal. Or if it is a deal, it's a deal that's going to get squeezed on price. So here's what I want to do. Go down to the chat box. I want to see what you guys have got. Send me right now one thought-provoking sales question you think every sales professional should be asking clients today. What's one thought-provoking sales question you think every sales professional should be asking clients today? Go down to the chat box. Let me see what you've got. Why do you want to make a change from Candace? What pains are you dealing with from Matt? Why did you accept this meeting from Junior? What's your biggest challenge in your business from Sylvia? David said, why did you decide to take this meeting? Why now? Rayanne says, how can I help you get to the next promotion? William says, would you like to be more competitive? Tony, why did you contact us? Good. So these are good questions. When I'm working with organizations and individuals on asking great questions, these are the three criteria we always want to look at. Are they open and not closed? Now that sounds real fundamental, but a lot of salespeople believe that closed questions are just yes, no questions. That's not true. Yes, no questions are a type of closed question. But if I ask you where you grew up, that is also a closed question, right? Because it can only be answered with one piece of information, one point of view, one insight. So we have to make sure the questions we're asking are open. The second thing, ladies and gentlemen, is your question should be unique and thought-provoking. You want to ask questions that your competition is not asking. So how do you know when you're asking unique and thought-provoking questions? Well, two things will happen. Number one, when you finish asking the question, there is going to be pause. And the reason there's pause is because the customer hasn't been asked this question before. So it's a thought-provoking question. They're having to process their response to you. The second thing that happens is the first words out of their mouth are, wow, you know what? That's a really good question. I've never been asked that before. So we want to make sure our questions are unique and thought-provoking. And then quite frankly, if you're really rocking it, you should ask questions that are wrapped in context. Context basically indicates this is why I'm asking you a question. So I just made this up before we came live, right? I could go to a sales executive that I'm trying to sell sales training to, and I could say, hey, what initiatives or plans are you considering to help your team improve their follow-up skills, right? We've been talking about that today. That is a good question. It's open, it's not closed. It should be unique and thought-provoking, but if you'll notice, there's absolutely zero context. It's just a question. If I wrap that question in context, if I say, hey, you know, Mr. Customer, here's the deal. There's some studies out there today that show that 80% of new business opportunities require at least 5 failed attempts to connect, but most salespeople report giving up after just 3 unsuccessful tries. What initiatives or plans are you considering to help your team capitalize on this opportunity? See how that changes the dynamic of the question immediately? All of a sudden, I'm not a peddler, I'm a partner. I'm somebody that's bringing insights and bringing information to the table. Ultimately, here's what happens. If you ask smart questions, your customers and your prospects are going to think you're smart. Does anybody need me to work through the corollary? Are we 100% okay on that one? Good, because we don't want to ask dumb questions. So here we go. Smart or dumb question. Hey, man, if I could save you some money, would you be interested in moving forward? Now, I don't know about you, but after I ask that question, I kind of want to run home and take a shower. That is not a smart question. So let me share with you guys very quickly just 4 examples of questions that I've been using. I can't guarantee they'll work for you, but I can guarantee they work. And let me show you how they help us launch into better conversations. Here's the first example. I sell blank, and you know what? There's a ton of options out there. Here's what I'm dying to know. How in the world is somebody in a position like yours? How do you choose? So let me unpack that for you. I sell blank, and there's a ton of options out there. Is that high pressure or low pressure? Well, it's very low pressure. I don't sound like a salesperson, right? The minute we start sounding like a salesperson, we're going to cause tension and friction during that conversation. So I can show up, I can say, look, guys, I sell sales training. You know what? There's a ton of options out there. But how in the world does somebody in a position like yours, let's pause. How in the world does somebody in a position like yours, that infers a certain amount of respect, a certain amount of importance. So I'm letting that person know, whether they're the secretary or the CEO, I'm saying, man, how in the world does somebody like you, how does somebody in a position like yours, how do you choose? And choose is a very important word, because if you listen to sales conversations today, most salespeople want to use the D word. How do you decide? What's your decision-making process look like? So think about questions like this to help launch better dialogues. Second example, gee, Mr. Customer, I'd love to do business with you guys, but you know, there's always risk and uncertainties with making a change like this. Why in the world wouldn't you guys leave things just the way they are? And some of you may be like, whoa, hang on, that sounds like you're trying to undo the deal. I've been doing this for over 35 years. Here's what I know. You can't undo the deal. If the deal's going to happen, the deal's going to happen. And when I ask a customer this, here's the situation. I'm trying to convince you to move forward. And if you can't convince me that you want to move forward, I mean, I'm your biggest loyalist. I'm your biggest fan. If you can't convince me that you want to move forward, there's no way in the world you're going to be able to go to your daddy and convince him. So you've got to be able to play it back, and you've got to be able to tell me this is why you think this change makes sense. How do we get around price? Here's a question that I'll use. Hey, you know what? If you guys have had a tough time coming up with a reasonable budget, you're not alone. A lot of clients have a tough time calculating a reasonable budget for a project like this. But let me ask you a question. Tell me a little bit about how you guys came up with your number. All right, so what's the context? Hey, if you got, I'm not selling a widget. So if you had a hard time coming up with a reasonable budget, you're not alone. But here's what I want to know. Tell me how you came up with your budget. Well, when you say, tell me how you came up with it, they typically volunteer how they came up with it. They volunteer who was involved in coming up with it. And more often than not, they simply share the number. And a fourth and final question, which is a really good closing question. At the end of the day, Mr. Customer, what's going to be the biggest difference between the one firm, the one rep, the one organization that wins your business, and the 3 others that come in second place? The message I want to really deliver today is we have to plan and prepare these questions in advance. Very rare is the salesperson that's going to ask this type of robust question without taking some time to plan and prepare the question you're going to ask. Why ask questions? We all know this. People are far more likely, we are far more likely to buy into ideas that we discover for ourselves rather than the ones you tell them. So if you can take your idea and make it into your customers' ideas through the way you ask questions, I know you'll increase your success. And my tip for you is just be curious. The salespeople that I see that are incredibly successful today are just really curious. And it gets hard because the longer we've been around, the more sales calls we make, we just kind of start to get in a rut, and you can't afford to get in a rut. So pride yourself on the types of questions you ask. Pride yourself on the number of questions you ask. I just showed you 4 out of my library. If you didn't like those 4, pick one of these. And if you don't like one of those, then pick one of these. And if you don't like one of those, then pick one of these. And if you don't like one of those, then pick one of these. Gabe's laughing. Have I made my point? If you don't plan and prepare your questions in advance, you're going into a knife fight with a stick. You're going to get hurt. And the last little tip here before I get to the last principle, when you set the tone, you really can launch a great conversation. So here's a little context. We've been teaching reps for 20 years, right? You start a sales conversation, an initial conversation by saying, hey, you know what? We do business with a lot of companies, and we're really proud of our work. But that doesn't mean we're going to be right for you. High pressure or low pressure. You see the pattern? That's low pressure. I don't know if we're going to be right for you. So at the end of the day, I got to ask you some questions. I got to learn more about your exact situation before we can even make sure this is going to be a good fit, whether we can even make sure whether we should move forward. So before I launch into how great my existing customers think I am, would it be okay if I asked you just a few important questions? You launch a conversation like that, and you're going to blow away the last rep that called to touch base or check in. Third and final principle today. If you got a Opium problem, I want to try to help you. I know some of you don't think this is a safe space, and that'd probably be pretty insightful on your part. But a lot of salespeople, myself included, we fight this thing called Opium. If you're not exactly sure if you've got a Opium problem, let me walk you through a diagnosis. Have you ever asked that question? Because if you ask that question, we're going to go out in the parking lot and we're going to have a prayer meeting right away, right? Would you like me to go ahead and put together a proposal? Ladies and gentlemen, it's one of the worst questions we can ask as sales professionals. Here's the deal. 2 salespeople call on me this afternoon. The first salesperson is a rock star. They got a compelling value proposition. They ask great questions. They've got super experience in my space. I love what they're telling me. And the salesperson I love says, would you like me to go ahead and put together a proposal? I'm going to say, you bet. If later this afternoon, a second rep, a different rep calls on me, and this rep is a hot, sweaty mess. They show up, they don't have a value proposition, they just talk. They don't ask any questions. They've got little experience in my space. They really don't understand what I do. They're wasting my time. And if this second rep says, hey, would you like me to go ahead and put together a proposal? I, like most of you, are going to say yes. Because as a species, we're non-confrontational. So whether you're a rock star or a knuckle dragger, when you ask questions like this, these Opium questions, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So here's the tip. Instead of asking, hey, would you like me to go ahead and put together a proposal, take the Opium out of it. Hey, Gabe, I've really enjoyed our conversation today, man. I'd love to do business with your firm. But yeah, I sense that putting together a proposal is still a little bit premature. What are your thoughts? Let's go back to the earlier example I used. Sales rep number 1, the sales rep that I loved. And that sales rep says, Tim, I sense it's still a little bit premature. What are your thoughts? I am begging that sales rep to take the next step. It's like, no, man, it's not premature. Bring it, man. I want a proposal. Let's do this thing. When was the last time you had a customer pull you through the sales cycle? That's a fun ride. The second example, the second sales rep, the hot, sweaty mess, if that sales rep has enough sense to say, I sense that putting together a proposal is still premature. What are your thoughts? I'm going to say, you're right. It's still a little bit premature. So be willing to go for a no. Don't try to hide the elephant. Put the elephant in the room and ask if anybody else notices that it's there. So in closing, folks, if you've got a Opium habit, here's the deal. Everything you say and do, you're always looking for a positive response. You make it really, really difficult for people to be honest with you. Everything you say and do is biased by what you're hoping to hear versus trying to get to the truth. Makes it difficult for other people to be honest with you, like I said, and for other people to tell you no. Make it easy for them to say no. I don't want you to get a no, but if there's a no out there, let's get it sooner rather than later. And last but not least, if you've got a Opium problem, it just creates a lot more work for you. 30 or 40% of the stuff in your pipeline is probably just junk. It's just junk. And so you've got to be willing to go back to people and figure out, are they for you or against you, and be willing to hear that no. So Gabe, with that, let me turn it back to you.
Love it, you guys. Fantastic, Tim. Really great content. Right in line, I think, with what we were talking about again today. We wanted to nail down how to get more conversations. Then once you get them, what do you do with them? Some of those questions, the science of asking great questions. Oh my goodness, it's important. Prep. So we're going to wrap up here, guys. Throw in the chat. Give us any questions. We got a couple minutes for questions here. As you're thinking about those questions, please grab Tim and I on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. Are you on Pinterest, Tim? I don't even know.
No.
I'm not.
I used to sell leather belts, but I gave that up.
There you have it. So one question did come in from Matt. It was just a minute ago, but he said, I have a hard time if people don't give me their budget. What if they won't give you their budget? I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Tim, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, maybe Matt's referring to, hey, tell me how you guys came up with your number. So Matt, if I can't get to the budget by saying, hey, tell me how you came up with the number, I'll start making the question more direct, more targeted. But the best way to get a customer to share the number is you've got to give them the context. Most customers, when they hear the words, what's your number, they're afraid that whatever number they give you, that's the number you're going to come in at. So they feel like, hey, if I answer this question, it's going to be used against me. So you have to ask the question in such a way, Matt, that you say, hey, Mr. Customer, this is going to seem awkward, but let me tell you why I need to know your number. And the value for knowing the number has to be with the customer, not with yourself. So if it's like, hey, I need to know your number because I want the quote to come in at that number, that's not a good reason. So put context out there. Mr. Customer, we work with a lot of people just like you, and this is why it's important for me to know this number.
I love it. I love it. That makes perfect sense. A couple other questions coming in. Patty, do you think changing content from one touch to the next is important in a cadence? Patty, I'll take this one. Again, we call it a play. And ideally, you stick with the principle or the concept throughout all of the touches in that play. So my phone call, my voice message, my email, my social, they all align with a consistent messaging throughout. Might have some different hooks. That's not a problem. But the messaging is consistent. We run that for that 8-day period, and then we recycle it, and then we think of a different play. So yes, I do like consistent messaging in your initial play. Couple other questions here. Tim, one for you. I occasionally feel that asking too many questions is taxing on the prospect. In your opinion, how many questions is too many? Should it be a 60-40 split in the time between prospect speaking and the rep speaking?
So that's a great question, Junior. My experience tells me that if you're asking the right kinds of questions, it won't be taxing. So if it's like, hey, do you have budget? How soon are you making a decision? Do you like walks on the beach? Do you like Barry Manilow music? Right? If you're asking those kinds of questions, that's taxing. But if you're asking questions, Junior, that's really getting your customer or your prospect to think differently about their situation, they'll let you ask questions all day long. I mean, I did something earlier this year, Junior, where we were only promised 10 minutes with executive VPs, and we didn't have one single 10-minute conversation because I was asking questions that they wanted to answer. So try to get the ratio where they're talking more than you're talking, and I think you'll create more success.
Perfect. A couple more here, and I'm trying to type you guys to some of you as well. Here you go. How do you get on? So Jim said, Gabe, please refresh us on the inside sales cadence related tool set. Jim, that's probably best as a follow-up conversation. I'll see if I can have one of my guys reach out to you. But again, it is a sales cadence tool with an opinion. So all the things we talked about, attempts, media, duration, the idea is to try to build that into a technology application that systematically syncs right into your CRM, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamics, SAP, etc. So you can manage a cadence in your head, you can manage it on Excel, Jim, or you can try to manage that within a technology application and then get some intelligence behind it. Again, what should you do? A call or an email here? Who should you go after? John asks, is the subject line of the email still the most important part of the cadence? John, that's the most important part of an email to get it opened, which is one part of a cadence. But your question, content or messaging, is the most important part of a cadence. So whether I'm talking about a LinkedIn isn't as important as what you say in the content of that. Email, subject line, body, that's the most important part of the email. The voice message doesn't matter. It's what you say in it. So content is the X factor in a cadence here. Oh my goodness, we shouldn't have asked this, Tim. I've got like 70 questions now. Tim, this one's for you. The science of asking great questions. Where can I find more help in regard to this, Tim?
Wayne, I'll tell you, there's a ton of great sales books out there. You can start with spin selling. You could look at question-based selling, which was written by Tom Freeze, integrity selling, solution selling. I think any good sales book is going to talk about asking questions. And so what I've done over the last 3 decades is taken a piece here, and have kind of put it together in a fashion and a manner that makes sense to me and makes sense to my customers.
I love it. Great resources there. So, guys, more questions, but our time has come to an end. I'd love to continue to ask some of these. Patty, Candace, Travis, thanks for your questions. Hit Tim and I up on LinkedIn if you can. I literally have to run to catch a plane right over there, so I am going to jump. But, guys, thanks so much. Tim, thank you for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, glad to do it. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you watching.
Yep. Take care. We'll be in touch.